All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to this session on Camtasia, using Camtasia for video feedback and tutorial videos. My name is Mike Erwin. I'm a professor in the Media Arts, Interactive Media and Web Design program, and I've recognized many of the names in the session. Today we're going to briefly go over just some of the fundamental tools in Camtasia that you might use for creating some of the feedback that you're giving in the discussions, as well as perhaps tutorials that you might create. The process will last about 20 minutes. So I'm going to try to spend most of the time in the tool, since I ran out of a little bit of time last time when I was doing Snagit. Now keep in mind, we're doing a series right now on different tools, and this is just one of a few tools you can use. By means, it's not the only one. If you have questions as we go, please post those in the questions palette, and I will address those at the end of the session. And I hope you enjoy the material. So Camtasia, what is Camtasia? Well, it's a screenshot program really that captures video and also audio. And this tool is particularly powerful as it almost mimics a tool like Adobe Premiere in that it allows you to take different video clips and sequences and combine them into one. It also allows you to overlay audio tracks, do transitions, and essentially do a little bit of movie production, but it's limited in many ways. It doesn't have the capabilities to do, blue screen or compositing or some of the things that the higher end video editing tools will have. But in terms of a tool that you might use to create tutorials or audio or anything like that, it is phenomenal for that. The tool is created also by TechSmith. It seems that they pretty much own everything these days that we might use to give video feedback. And it also has a variety of, there's a demo as well on that site. And if you go out to the site for TechSmith, you'll see a variety of tools like Snagit and some of the other ones that we've been talking about where you can get a free demo. If you're already using Jing or something like that, then you can get that for free, of course, off of that site as well. There's a lot of ways to do this, of course, and again, this is just one of many. As far as cost goes for this tool, I have seen it for $99 and various other prices, depends on what's on sale. I think the best choice is probably looking at journeyed.com, since we're all in the academic area. They simply verify that we're teachers through the college, and then we get the educational discount for these tools. And I was able to get this one for $99, and it was a package deal with Camtasia and Snagit. I got them both for $99. It was some sort of a special, and those happen a lot. So I would just keep an eye on the site and follow that along and see if there's something that interests you. There's a lot of ways to insert content, and I'm going to show you how to do that. We can grab embed codes from the output. We can actually just insert the video file directly using the Insert Stuff button in Brightspace, and I'm going to demonstrate that as well. And then also Capture Central is an area where you can upload files to essentially serve up to various places of the course as needed. So I'll demonstrate a little bit of that briefly, but let's jump right into the software, and let me pull that up. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. I'm going to just put it right up there. And I do believe I am broadcasting the right window. Let's double check. Yes, we are. And again, if you have questions as we go, just put those in the questions tab and we'll address those once we get to the end. All right, so Camtasia, when you first do a file new, it basically gives you some options for what you might do. And in this case, I have a new file set. There's nothing going on. There's various parts of the interface. It does look a little confusing at first, and this is a version, I think the latest version has changed the interface just a bit, but it's the same essential idea. You'll have various tools. Let me slide over the screen just a bit, and you'll notice a series of tools that are available at the very bottom down here. There are the ability to do call outs and zoom in and pan and audio transitions. You have some cursor effects. You can change certain visual properties of things. You can insert voice narration. You can record your camera. It certainly does closed captioning, and I've used it many, many times. It's not perfect, just like every other closed captioning tool. It sometimes gives you some words that you don't recognize. You have to fix that, but it does get you going. It also does the ability to add interactive scoring or quizzes and questionnaires and these types of things. But for the most part, we're simply going to capture areas of our course, and then we're going to utilize that. Now I'm going to use this course as an example of what we might do with it. Let me slide that out of the way. First thing you might do is you could record the screen. And so I'm just going to kind of go through the nuts and bolts of it. If I go to record the screen, you can two options. You can record a PowerPoint. If you already have the PowerPoint open, then recording the screen would be just fine. And let's say, for example, I'm going to go into my learning path here in a class and pull up an artifact of some kind. Let me see if I have one here. Okay. I'm just going to record, I'll just record a portion of the screen just to give you an idea how that works. And so when you hit record screen, it's going to bring up a little toolbar. Let me slide that into view, and there it is. And the toolbar is kind of nice because you can kind of do various pieces of things here. You can select an area, you can do full screen, and you can do a variety of other things. What it's going to do is, let me slide my little selector in the view. It's kind of cutting it off. You can resize the area that you want to capture. So depending on what it is, if you open an artifact of some kind, let's say a student had worked on something for you and you wanted to demonstrate what that was or talk about what that was as they went, you could certainly just open that artifact and demonstrate that artifact. Let me see if I have something here. One moment. Tons of images here. Yeah. Sorry about the delay. Broadcasting sometimes does that. So let's say, for example, I was working with an artifact and I wanted to capture the artifact. I can just put it around the area that I want, and I'm going to do. It's going to be strange that I'm recording a recording, but I'll hit record. And then one thing you want to check always is to make sure you have audio. As you can see, my audio, and I'll just move my mic around so you can see it spiking here. This will kind of allow you to adjust your levels in the event that, for example, your microphone is just so loud that when it outputs, it's super distorted. This will kind of tell you, as you can see it, if it hits the red zone, I'm kind of snapping my fingers to give it a little pulse. You can adjust it here if you think your inputs are too high. Most of this stuff by default is going to be set for you. I'm kind of just showing what that might be. You can turn your webcam on and off. It'll place the webcam within a certain area. And from there, I'll just hit record since this is the area I want. It's going to count down when it's ready to do it. And I'm going to just, there we go. So now we're recording. And from there, I can just give feedback to a student, tell them how great it was that they, whatever they did, give them positive, constructive feedback, give them some suggestions for improvement. And then from there, basically hit stop once you've got it and give it a moment to compile it. Close that. Now it's going to put it right inside of Camtasia. It's going to show a preview of it. Here it is. And you can kind of hear me talking while I talk, which is a lot. If I don't like it, I can hit delete. If I want to save it and edit it, I can do that from here as well. And if I hit save and edit, it's going to bring it into the editor for me to do some additional things to it. And I'm going to go ahead and do that in a second. If I want to produce it, which just means it's good to go the way it is, I can just hit produce, and it's going to tell me where I want to save the file. And I'm just going to work off of my desktop today, which I typically don't do. Put it in there, and so now I've got it. It's saved, and it's actually going to save it as a master file, which means I can open it again later and edit it if I need to for some reason. From there, since I'm not going to do any editing, I'm going to go right to output. There's a variety of interesting output options here. There's just a lot, and it'll convert whatever video you've made to some other format for you, which is nice. MP4s are ideal, of course, because they're the most compatible for the web, and Brightspace loves them. But interestingly enough, if you use one of the features like Smart Player will, if it'll detect your mouse movement, and it'll kind of try to zoom and focus on those things for you, which is kind of nice. If you want to do some custom settings, you can, which I typically use that just to make sure that the output I'm getting is the size that I created it. You can also share it to YouTube. You can share it to Google, and you can also share it to Screencast. Now, the thing about sharing to Screencast is you have to have a Screencast account, and of course, to get one, you simply go to screencast.com and you can get one. And if you have a Jing account, you'll have a Screencast account, and you can use that same information here. And it'll upload it to that server, and I'm not sure if I've connected this one to it. Yeah, I did. And it's just going to give me all the options for it, and it's going to show you that it's uploading it to Screencast, and it just takes a minute to render the video. So this one is probably a little more intense in terms of producing the video than Jing might be, because Jing can be a little faster. But I tell you, the quality of the audio is much, much better with this tool than you might get with Jing. Not saying that Jing's not a good tool. It's just this one I've noticed has some really interesting, clean audio, which is quite nice. While that compiles, we have a question, Andrew. No, it is not free. It is a tool that you can purchase through journeyed.com, and I think you can get a bundle for about $99 right now, sometimes less if they're on sale. And there it goes, and it's going to run it in a browser, and here's the browser running in the wrong screen over here, but and there it is. And here's the screencast. It's up on the server, and there's the URL. Now, incidentally, we want to try to use this process so that we have the MP4, and with that, I can open up the project that I created just a moment ago. Let me go back to it. Well, let's do a new recording, actually. We'll do a different one. I'll do another quick one so we can just show that process one more time. So screen, record screen, it's going to give you your, where's my player? It's thinking about it. Sometimes it's a little slow to come up. There we are. And you grab the area that you want. Okay, so I'm going to just say this area here. Hit record. It's going to count down when it's ready, and that way you know you're broadcasting. And now it's recording. So whatever I say, whatever I show within this little flashing area here is what it's grabbing. In this case, I'm done because it's beautiful and I love it. And so I'm going to go ahead and, of course, the recorder is going to stop working on me. Okay, great. Let's give it a moment. I use it frequently, and it rarely crashes, which, of course, since I'm broadcasting now, it's going to do that for me. Appreciate that, Camtasia. Let's give it a moment. Okay. So I've got some recent projects here while that recorder is trying to figure itself out. Now, typically it doesn't crash. Let me see here if I've got one. And I'll simplify this a bit just so that we don't have all that. So just say here's a video I made, and here's a video I was working on business law and criminal law. And a couple of editing features I wanted to show you. Now, if I recorded a video and instead of hitting produce, I simply hit edit, it would bring it in here, and then I can see that I've got various tracks. And this is going to be way overkill for a lot of things we're doing, but it's good to have. If I wanted to overlay multiple videos on one another, I could do that. You also have an audio track down here you can use. But let's say, for example, I wanted to do some cutting of the video. Let's say this video, I just don't need it all. It does have some tools available here, right along this toolbar here, and you can kind of see here you have a cut tool, so you can cut various points of the timeline. So let's say, for example, I wanted to just have the first portion of that. I can simply cut wherever my playhead is and eliminate a piece of whatever it was I didn't want. So in this case, I don't want to spend a lot of production time, so I'm just going to cut this part, and you can kind of see how it cut it. So you can also keep the cut pieces or slide the cut pieces around or insert another video in there or audio or whatever you want to do, which is nice. But for the sake of just creating it, we'd record the screen, we'd do the capture, we'd bring it in, do any editing we might want to do. And then from there, it does have some features that are, I think, common that you might want to check, and that is your audio. A lot of times audio, for some reason, if you have like clips or clicking or noise, it does have the ability to filter the audio just a bit, which is quite nice. If you simply check enable noise removal, if say you can hear my air conditioner going in the background, or just anything that might be background noise, it'll tend to try to filter that out, which is quite nice. You can also increase the volume. You can decrease the volume. You can select an area that you might want and add silence to it. That can happen. Maybe your dog barked at the 3-minute mark and you're like, I don't want to record that again. You can simply highlight an area that was in that range. And let me zoom in so you can see the waveform. And let's say you wanted to add silence to it, you could do that. Or even voice narration, which is nice. Maybe at the 3-minute mark, you want to insert additional voice narration, you can click that and start talking, and it would throw that clip right in there. But once you've got the video the way you want it, let's say that we did some editing, some cutting, we just simply have to produce that video again. See that? So I'm going to go ahead and output this video, and I'm going to use custom settings. Now, custom settings allows me to choose what kind of format I output it to. Some of these you're going to be probably thinking, why would I ever do that? Why would I ever output as a GIF animation file? I don't know, but I can if I want to. But ideally, MP4 is going to be the best way to go, and that's going to be the most compatible. So I'll just click through the defaults. It does allow you to do some additional things. You have the ability to change the player. So if you don't like that player, there's some other players. You can kind of see down at the bottom how it's changing that. You know, some different stuff. Some of them are pretty neat. You can change the size if you want to. You can change the compression of the video. So if you want a little more compression to have a smaller file, you can do that. You can change the bit rate. A lot of this stuff, though, by default, you don't really have to do anything. You could literally just hit produce, next, 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 and then just get to the point where you're outputting, which is right here. I want to tell it to save to my desktop, and I'm just going to call it, I'll just leave the name exactly like it is. So it's going to output it here, and this little button actually is the old school Macromedia. If you remember those guys, they use those microscopic icons that you can never see. So there, that's the output. I'm just going to hit finish. Let me close that. And it's processing it. Let's give it a second to do that. And I'll just go to my announcements here while it's doing that and show you how we might insert that file. And again, I'm really just I'm skimming it over quickly because you won't do a lot of the video editing that you might be able to do. You're basically just going to do a screen capture, and then you'll have a video. And so here's the video. And you can kind of see that has my beautiful player. I have controls here as well. There's some additional options too. And if you did closed captioning for it, it would have created that and added the additional CC button to it. But I didn't, so we're not going to do that. So let's bring that on into, let me close that. So there we go. So I'm going to insert that file, let's say, and I'll just use an announcement for the sake of the demonstration. The tools that are in your discussion threads are the same ones that are in your announcements. So it's the same button set, same capabilities. So I'll show you how you might insert that. Right here is the insert stuff button, which is a very general name for stuff, really, because it's a lot of different things it'll do. It's kind of a smart tool in that it'll recognize compatible formats. So I'm going to go to my computer, and then I'll navigate to wherever I placed that file, which was on my desktop. And I put it in the output setting here, and you can see all the files it creates. I just need the MP4. But incidentally, why did it create all these? Well, these are self-contained. I can put them up on a web server if I wanted to and just link to the HTML file, and it would serve it up, which is quite nice. But I just want the MP4, which is right there. I'll hit OK and upload, and then give it a moment to think about that. Still thinking. Now the initial size I think is important, because if you just bring the whole thing in and it's kind of a 640 by 480 or 1024, or if you're viewing on a high resolution monitor, it's going to give you this monster video. But you want the initial size to be something that's formattable, and you can make a pretty announcement or a pretty discussion thread. Typically you'll preface your video with some sort of commentary and then say, by the way, here's some more feedback. So I usually go no larger than 320 by 240. There are a variety of sizes, but you don't want it to be too large. And of course, give it a name of some kind that's relevant. And I don't want it to start automatically, so we'll just leave it at that. So you can kind of see how nice and relatively easy it is to do that piece. And then I can still, just as a discussion thread, I can still type, information around that, or add more graphics, or put it in a table, or whatever you want to do. But in a discussion thread, you're typically going to say things like, hey, Jack, great work on this. It's coming along well. Here's just a few suggestions and a few notes. And then you can hit the insert stuff button. There's your video. And when you save it, and I'm not going to fully save this because it'll confuse my students probably, I just hit draft so I could see what it looks like. Let's give it a moment. And then you kind of see that's how it would look in a discussion thread or an announcement, and it's very playable. There it goes, and I can blow it up if I need to. So it still has the same capabilities. And I think more so, Snagit does good for this as well. You can still output MP4s and embed them this way. You can also output Camtasia with embed codes and then use those. But the insert stuff button is probably the fastest and most efficient. And best thing to do is experiment with it. And of course, if you acquire the software and you ever need help with it, reach out to me. I'm glad to demonstrate it again. This video will be available online for you to kind of just get a general overview of it, but typically it's going to be record screen and from there, just outputting it. I know that was a quick session, and again, reach out to me anytime you have questions. This will be just another one of the tools we'll be exposing you to in a series of videos, so be sure to keep an eye out for those as we move forward. I appreciate you all coming out today, and have a great 4th of July.